What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs and Rays, back with another Outriders worldslayer video to bring to you, and today we are going to be covering possibly the biggest kind of turnaround we have ever seen in Outriders in probably all of history, and that is going to be Tools of Destruction. Now, more specifically, we're going to be talking about the minigun, because while the RPG has its own kind of benefits, and the RPG is definitely worthwhile of talking, I'm going to do a separate build video for that, because most of the mods actually do kind of, they separate, so obviously you can pick the RPG, you can pick the minigun at all times, but this one's going to be specifically aimed towards the minigun, and then the next build video I'm going to do is going to be aimed towards the RPG. So obviously you can then pick and choose, you can then mix and match as depending on which build you actually want to go for, and then all it takes is a couple of mods to be able to actually swap over. It really is just that simple. That being said, you can actually get away with using both at the exact same time, and I'm going to show you how to be able to get away with that, because this build has a really good way of being able to actually stack up its anomaly power, stack up its resistance piercing, and then find a way to be able to kind of turn that all into damage and being able to get anything. So before we get into it, make sure you have dropped a like and a subscribe. It does help the channel out, and let's get right into the nitty gritty. Alright, so as last time, what we'll do is we'll show off the build, and then we'll get right into why it works the way it does. Now, the first thing that you want to do is the weapon doesn't necessarily make too much of a difference. The reason why is because with your minigun and your RPG out, we're not able to benefit from any of those equipped kind of effects. What you can do, though, is if you're actually going into a specific kind of boss area, you can actually use a gun to be able to stack yourself up, and then you equip your minigun, and then you have that benefit for so much time. Now, the reason why we're going to do this is because we're going for the final penance. Now, the final penance is really good at being able to do all of that, because what it does is it enables to stack up your anomaly power for 15 seconds, which is more than ample enough time to be able to actually get the full benefit of that. And you can stack this up 4 times, so you can get a 40% anomaly power bonus just from shooting this gun into the crit section, just for a second or so, and then swap over to your minigun to be able to get that full benefit when you actually do shoot. Now, when it comes to, I've been messing about with a couple of things. I've been trying Omen, but Omen doesn't last very long. I've tried Fortress, but Fortress disappears pretty much straight away. So I'm currently trying with Deathrenome. Now, Deathrenome does give you that anomaly power bonus at the start, and it's very, very nice. But as to whether this actually stays equipped or not is something that I actually do need to do a bit more testing on. I wanted to get this build out for you first, and then I'll actually do a separate video covering what Deathrenome actually can do and what it can't do and what it's kind of limited towards. So so when it comes to that extra mod, there's not much that can actually really help you there. I suppose the only other thing can potentially be Gravedigger's Frenzy. But once again, this is yet to be seen, because is it going to be a case that it actually stays equipped to your character, or is it stay equipped to your gun? So we'll do a separate video covering what that can actually do. Now, the main thing to really take away from this is the minigun got buffed in a way that it actually allows it to be able to crit now. So that means that we can actually use certain mods to be able to actually stack up kind of like anomaly power when it actually does do that crit. And this is what makes this build so much better than what it actually used to be in New Horizons for Outriders, or when it was vanilla Outriders. So let's have a quick look into the build first. Let's dive into it, and let's take it from there. Now, I haven't gone for the Grim Inventors because I don't think that set is very good, and it also doesn't come with the rolls that I want it to. So what I have done is I've gone for a Flame Leper set. Now, the main setup bonus when it comes to this is when you inflict Toxic 3 times, it will transform that status into Blightfire, and that will deal additional damage over time. Now, the reason why we've gone for that is, one, because it has the perfect rolls that we actually need, which is Anomaly Power, Cooldown Reduction, and Status Power. But on top of that, it is a nice bonus to actually get, and it's also one of the easier ones to be able to farm, rather than actually just waiting for those perfect purple epics apocalypse rod rolls to actually come your way. And these ones are always fixed, so therefore it's definitely better. On top of that, it also comes with some really nice mods, and it actually does really cater to the build very, very nicely. But we'll get into it, what's necessary, and we'll get into what's nice. So the first thing I've gone for is Upgraded Gun, which gives your active minigun 30% resistance piercing bonus. This is absolutely essential, and we'll get into it in a little bit, because there's another mod that actually pairs really, really nicely with this. We've gone for Radical Therapy because we will be dealing toxic, so therefore we might as well get a little bit of a damage bonus. And the Apocalypse mod is unfortunately dead on this one, because I haven't found a better one just yet. So Splash Boost, you can completely disregard that, and any of the other mods that I'm going to suggest to you very, very shortly, I would highly recommend that you try and get a roll that actually does have those in. Moving swiftly on, we have the Robes of the Flame Leper, so there's our second of the set, which comes with Party Starter, which increases the strength of Fixing Wave by 8% for every single enemy that's in the arena up to 100%. This is definitely not necessary. It's kind of nice to actually have, because it will help you if you are very slow moving, especially against Ocreal. You kind of actually, you can't avoid any of the projectiles that actually do come your way. So therefore you can actually use your fixing wave in a way to be able to keep yourself alive. So therefore Party Starter technically can help you out there, but it's by no means essential. It's by no means the best one in slot, and it's just unfortunately the second mod was definitely not worth it, so therefore I swapped that one out. Next one is Arms and Anomaly, and this is crucial. This is definitely one of the best mods to actually get put in here, and this is probably one of the best mods to actually use for anomaly power builds all in general. Critical shots increase your anomaly power by 190,000, 186 for 6 seconds, and this has a 6-second cooldown, so therefore as long as you're using your minigun to constantly hit crits, you'll always have this bonus up. Obviously this bonus is at level 62, so obviously it will be higher depending on the higher Apocalypse tier that you actually do go. And then the Apocalypse mod that I have got on this is Ice Trap. Whenever your health dips below 30%, freeze is then inflicted on enemies within a 10-meter radius. Now this is kind of a nice panic button, but once again this is definitely not necessary. I would quite happily take something else and swap this out, so definitely do not have to have that in your build. Next we have the Waistcloth of the Flame Leper, which comes with Virulent Compound, and this also does complete the 3-piece that we are actually using for the Flame Leper set, giving us that thing. So Virulent Compound gives us 10% more damage to elites afflicted by Toxic or Blightfire, and then any elites that explode when they're actually killed will then deal so much damage and then spread that status to other enemies. This is quite nice, and I would probably recommend that you actually do go for this piece. One, because it gives you that nice 10% damage boost, because you will be applying Blightfire so quickly in this build, and I'll explain why that is the case very shortly. Quartermaster is there and is quite essential to be able to actually refill our minigun's magazine, because we aren't going bottom tree to be able to actually refill it. We are using top tree, and I'll explain what the choice is when it comes to that as well. Now this did roll with freezing boost, which is very nice when it actually is paired with the ice trap one from before, but overall this is once again a dead mod. You can tell that I haven't done very well with our apocalypse roll so far, so definitely that's not necessary. Next up we have the Plague Sower's Hands. Now the reason why I've gone for this is, one, because I haven't found a better glove roll. There's a couple of things that I do have, but I don't actually like the rolls that's currently on this one, and also Radical Therapy has already been taken up. So therefore I've gone for this, and the main reason is because we're taking the Status Power. Status Power is just that good on this build. That is the main reason why we've actually gone for these. On top of that we also get Euthanizer, and that allows us to be able to get 16% more damage to enemies afflicted by Toxic, which every single enemy we shoot at is going to be afflicted with that. And Bang for Your Buck allows us to be able to have 100% base ammo increase, and this works for both the RPG and the minigun, which is an absolute godsend. We have 320 rounds when it comes to our minigun, and we have 8 rockets when it comes to our RPG. Power Assimilation is there as a really nice way to be able to boost up our anomaly power even further, and obviously this increases for every single elite, so when it comes to mobbing you can actually see your anomaly power kind of skyrocket with this, and it's not unheard of. At this current rate, at level 61, I've been able to hit rockets that have been bordering almost 10 million, just due to how many elites have been and how I've actually set up in the first place. Next up we actually have, I've actually got a decent roll when it comes to anomaly power and status power, but unfortunately it did give me a couple of bad rolls when it came to Pain Launcher. Now we are using Pain Launcher in this build, and it is quite nice to be able to decrease the skill cooldown by 35%, but the increased range isn't necessary, and that's once again another of those dead Apocalypse mods that I would probably recommend that you actually do swap out. The main thing to be able to go for is Unstoppable Force, because increasing our anomaly power by 50% of our resistance piercing is insanely huge. When we actually pair that with the upgraded gun to be able to give ourselves 30% resistance piercing as standard, and we are using Bottom Tree, which also gives us another 30%, we are actually seeing a big 30% increase to our anomaly power, and then that also will then tie in with all the other boosts that we're actually going to be getting when it comes to like Arms and Anomaly, when it comes to Power Assimilation, and it's really nice overall, and it also feeds off all the pieces that we actually are currently wearing. So I will show the stats currently on the screen for you, just so you actually have an idea as to how this currently looks. The higher the status power, the better, really, because that is going to be the main thing that feeds into our abilities. And obviously we've got a decent global cooldown reduction, and our resistance piercing is there. So let's have a quick look into the skills. So we have gone Pain Launcher, and it's important that we get this down to less than 10 seconds, and we'll find out why very shortly. But Pain Launcher is there to be able to trigger your capstone, and it's also there as a really nice way to be able to inflict Toxic, and it's also very good at being able to inflict Blightfire. This is a really nice way to be able to deal with trash mobs, and it's also a really nice thing to be able to pop down in front of like a big elite, something like the Arbiter, and it will pretty much eat every single one of those rockets, and after 3 rockets it's got Blightfire, and it will continue to take more damage, which then gets fed off lethal devices and all that kind of good stuff. So Pain Launcher is actually very deceiving, and it is very good as a skill, but I haven't specced into it in terms of damage, and I would probably recommend that you maybe give that a go at some point if you can actually get some better rolls than I do. But overall, it does decently enough by itself. It doesn't necessarily need that damage increase, and therefore that's why we've got that there. Tools of Destruction is obviously the main skill that we are planning to use. Now, you can use Rocket Launcher and you can use Minigun. This build will be focused on the Minigun, as we've already covered, and this will allow you to be able to do a buttload of damage. And then our Fixing Wave is there, and a just over 10-second cooldown, and what this will do is heal us up. It will heal us up to full, and then on top of that, we will then actually get our magazine refilled as well. So we've got a look at our class tree. So this is almost kind of a standard bottom tree kind of build, and the only thing that you could potentially mix into here is Adrenalizing Antenna. Now, the reason why you can do that is obviously you can get potentially, if you get better rolls, you could potentially get rid of Pain Launcher, or if you're able to get something like Toxic Lead, you could potentially try swapping Fixing Wave out for it as well. So that's definitely a good shout, but unfortunately I haven't got the rolls for that to be able to actually show that off to you. So what we actually do have is obviously gone for as much Anomaly Power as possible, and we tried to pick up as much Resistance Piercing as possible as well. So the idea is going all the way across, increasing our Toxic as well, and this allows us to be able to take the full advantage of Blightfire, and so we can actually increase the amount of damage that Blightfire deals as well as the duration of it to then obviously just deal a bit more damage. And because the minigun isn't the most accurate of guns in the first place, it definitely benefits from that to be able to help deal with some trash mobs in the first place. We have Wipeout to be able to deal even more damage when enemies get below 30% health, and this is a really good way to be able to actually finish some elites off, so I highly recommend that you do actually pick that up. And then I had 2 points left over, and like I said, while the Adrenalizing Antenna would have been nice, I probably would have put that there, and maybe I probably would have picked up something like a little bit of Skill Leech or something, or maybe even took the cooldown node. Because I don't have that, and because I've gone for this build, I've gone for a bit more at max health, and I've also gone for Gadgeteer to be able to help reduce our Fixing Wave cooldown as well. We'll move on to the Ascension Tree next, and the main thing is that we want to fill up the anomaly as much as possible, but the Skill Leech isn't necessary. Now, the main focus you want to be able to do with this in terms of order is to be able to grab anomaly damage. From there, you want to be able to either grab Resistance Pierce or grab Status Power, and the reason why is because this will be the main thing that contributes into our Pax Tree, but Resistance Pierce is just overall very, very good, so I would probably go with that second, and then maybe Status Power third, and then maybe Anomaly Power, and then, as I'm currently doing, damage against Elite. Why the Status Power is so good is because if we go into our Pax Tree, we've gone for something slightly different. Now, when we did our build theory, I did actually talk about going into Dissection, and that was before all the nerfs. But Dissection is pretty decent if you are actually going for a status kind of build, and it's not too bad of a shout, but it's definitely not the most damaging. The reason why we're able to deal so much damage is because of this bottom tree. So what we'd actually do for is Initial Striker to be able to increase our anomaly power every single time we activate a skill. We go for Lethal Devices to be able to allow our minigun, our Pain Launcher, to actually inflict Toxic and then deal extra damage on as anomaly power damage if Toxic gets refreshed, so that actually helps us to be able to inflict a little bit more baseline damage. Painkiller is just there as standard to be able to obviously keep us alive. It doesn't offer anything more like that, other than only firepower builds really benefit from that. Break their ranks. Your interrupt skills remove effect resistance from hit elite for a 7-second cooldown. While it doesn't sound like much on paper, it does really help out with inflicting things like Toxic and Blightfire. So therefore this just makes it so consistent that you're able to apply that status, and that allows us to be able to benefit from the multipliers. So it's kind of deceiving, doesn't really sound like it does much, but it is actually pretty decent. And then lastly we go for Depleted Core, and this is the main focus as to why this build is so good, because your ordnance skills damage is increased by 100% of your status power. Now, why is this so important? Well, if we actually go back to our inventory and back to our stats, and you'll notice our status power is at 219.7%. Not only are we actually getting the amount of damage to our Toxic, and obviously being able to apply damage that way, we're now getting a full 219.7% stat straight into our minigun for what it was already doing when it came to our anomaly power in the first place. So we actually, it almost feels like it goes right to the end and goes, right, this was the amount of damage you were going to do. Here's a nice 219.7% multiplier on top of that. It is pretty huge, and it's definitely the main reason why this build really kind of takes off. So I've come back to the Outriders camp because you can't actually activate any kind of skills when it comes to the Trials of Tyria guitar. So what we're able to do here is we can see our baseline is at 938k. And then what we do is every single time we activate our minigun and then pop it, we're now up to 1.3 million points of anomaly power. Now this goes even higher if you do trigger Mage's Rage before you actually go and activate that skill, so I highly recommend that you do actually take full advantage of that 40% anomaly power, especially against things like Arbiter, especially against people like Yagak, and actually take full advantage of that way. But overall, this build is absolutely solid. It's got so much survivability, it's got so much damage, and it pretty much just whittles away everything in its path. Like I said, we will be covering an RPG build section separately to this video, so make sure you keep your eyes out for that on the channel. So when it comes to what kind of mods would I actually swap out, what would I actually like to see in this build, there's only 3 choices that I would actually like to make, and that would be Captain Hunter to be able to help us out with some elites and actually get a very nice damage multiplier that way. We've got Anomaly Echo, which gives us another massive anomaly power bonus every single time we activate a skill, so I'd highly recommend picking that up. And the only other one that I'd recommend is Danger Close. Now Danger Close is kind of a weird one, because obviously this it kind of increases based on enemies in close range, but most of the enemies will actually get close to you because you don't have any kind of cleave ability. So therefore, when you have a minigun, you're kind of surrounded. Even though it doesn't really phase you in any kind of way, you actually get a nice anomaly power bonus, and that would actually help you to be able to clear out any kind of ads that are actually coming your way. So that just pretty much wraps up the build. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've learned something useful with ourselves. If you did, make sure you drop a like and a subscribe. It really does help the channel out. And I really do. Let me know in the comment section down below. Really, just let me know. Is this something that you would pick up? Are you actually going to give Minigun, Tools of Destruction, another chance? And obviously for the fact that it's just improved so much since Vanilla Outriders. Thank you so much for making the end of the video. Thank you so much to the Babylonian family, as always, for their continued support. It really does mean the world to us. And that just leaves me to say, keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on our next video.